you'd like to turn your camera and microphone on. Welcome, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Madam. It's Rehman Chishti, the Member of Parliament for Gillingham and Rainham. And can I thank you at the very outset for the opportunity today to give evidence to this inquiry with regards to the Pump Lane development in my constituency of Gillingham and Rainham. I've consistently and strongly opposed this development from the very outset in 2019, taking into account local knowledge of the area, residents' views, and I fully support Medway councils in opposition to this development. It is a real privilege to be hometowns of Gillingham and Rainham as its Member of Parliament since 2010. My family and I have lived in these towns since 1980, for 36 years, since when I first moved to the area at the age of 6. The Riverside Country Park and the surrounding area is an area in which I regularly visit, go for a walk and run, and I know very well. And to Parliament for the area, I've always fought for my constituents' best interest across all spectrums. Planning developments are one of the issues that is raised most regularly with me by local constituents. This planning development for 1,200 maximum at Pump Lane is one of the largest single developments that has been proposed in my constituency whilst I was in Parliament. I wrote to the head of the planning department at Medway Council on the 12th of July 2019, setting out a clear case why the development should be rejected, a copy of which I have shared in my written submission to the Planning Inspectorate. I'm here to represent the views of the thousands of constituents who have expressed their real total opposition to this development. And no doubt, Madam, you have seen the correspondence from my constituents on this matter to you in full. I know many of them are watching this because I see the filter. I just want to say thank you for confirming that all their views will be fully taken into account. In fact, all the correspondence I've had with constituents at regular public street surgeries, which I did before the pandemic on Saturdays in the town centre, meeting local residents, hearing what they had to say at the public events which were held across the constituency. There was a total, clear, a near unanimous opposition to this development. Correspondence I've received in favour of this or communication of this development is by the developer themselves. The main argument today is that the proposed development is unsustainable for my local community, and the potential positives are outweighed by its negative impact on the local area. This is a wrong size application, and this is in a wrong location. If I say at the very outset, in planning development, our strategic scale and proposal need to go through a local plan put together by local authorities in consultation with local residents, in which a number of different proposals and strategies can be considered. It has not been identified by the local authority in any shape or form for planning development. Therefore, it would be wrong in principle to grant this application contrary to that very, very principle. And I accept the Medway Council's track record on finalising a local and 62 dwellings per year. In terms of the council's local plan, this means building 28,300 homes by 2037. And in the last year, the local authority built 1,130 houses, approximately, which were the largest number of houses built by Medway Local Authority in its existence for over near 20 years. Meeting its required housing need through a plan-led process, which allows for the merits of alternative strategies and alternative rights for meeting that need to be assessed, and for the necessary infrastructure to be provided in an integrated manner. I support new housing where it can be sustainably built, ideally on brownfield sites and with the views of the local community taken into account. With regard to the housing spaces, of course one needs to look at that when the need is required. However, we are considering sites of such a strategic scale, it needs to go through a local planned procedure and with the full public consultation. I have worked closely with Medway Council in advocating for the delivery of appropriate new housing and necessary sporting infrastructure they require. Many hundreds of houses have been built in my constituency in the last decade, apartment blocks on the waterfront in Gillingham Pier, where I myself used to live. And in 2017, Medway Council opened Centenary Ward, the second phase of 58-home development, the largest council bungalow site in the country being built at the time. Additionally, I lobbied and met and had meetings with the Secretary of State in supporting an ultimately successful housing infrastructure bid for Medway Council. This will mean 170 million of funding in Medway to provide over 12,000 new homes on the Hugh Peninsula. And as stated in my opening, my first objection is to scale a development on this specific site, which has not been by the local authority for housing. I now set out 4 key objections which local residents have raised with me. Madam, I said at the very outset, I'm an expert in planning or planning law. I am a member of Parliament for Gillingham and Rainham, and for me, it's important to put the views of my constituents across at today's hearing. Development is an unacceptable intrusion and attack on valued green space in Gillingham and Rainham. And I make this point: if one looks at the map of constituencies across the country, you'll see Gillingham appears as a small dot because it is a very small, densely populated constituency. It has the electorate of around 72,000 in the constituency, but if you look at it on them, it is one of the most densely populated constituencies in the land on which the development is proposed is rural and mainly comprised of high quality farmland, which I understand surveyors have confirmed to be rated in grade 1 and grade 2. There are also leisure facilities available, such as bridle paths and several small country. If this development goes ahead, over 100 acres of high quality agricultural farmland will be lost forever. And the green and rural environment of this site itself, not only of this site itself, but also the surrounding area of Lower Rainham will be badly damaged. The development would also have a harmful impact on our local heritage, with many heritage sites nearby, which would be negative. For example, there are several listed buildings in close proximity, including grade 2 pump farmhouse areas at Lower Twiddle and Lower Rainham, to name just some. The others have been highlighted by the local authorities council in this. The council has stated that the development will be contrary to the local plan, and the supposed benefits of the development would not outweigh the harm to the heritage sites nor the harm. Furthermore, during the local plan process, the local authority, Medway Council, took a call for sites and strategic land availability assessment, which identified what sites were considered to be suitable and available and deliverable, and this went to Cabinet in December 2019. And this did not show the pump lane SAT criteria. The proposed development would have a significant long-term negative impact on the landscape, which so many residents, including myself, as I regularly run in the area, enjoy. In my view, it should be built primarily on brownfield sites with appropriate supporting infrastructure, where greenfield development is necessary, where the environmental impacts can be adequately addressed and taken into account the local community. I've made this point repeatedly during my time as the Member of Parliament, for example, in my representations to Medway Council regarding the new local plan on the 31st of March 2017 and on the 25th of June 2018. My constituency contains some of the most densely populated wards in the Medway Unitary Authority, such as Twiddle, directly to the south of this development. And 150 homes on little more than 126 acres, the new development would be more densely populated than the Twiddle area already is. I accept that with good urban planning, a densely populated area can be well supported, but this relies on significant further resources to ensure extra school places, GPs, public transport links and road capacity are readily available. And this leads me to my second point with regards to the educational provision for local children. With the addition of the extra 1,250 homes being proposed, something which has also been raised with me by local residents. The development proposes the construction of a primary school. However, local primary schools are already at capacity. I understand that development will make financial contribution to secondary schools, but no physical provision is being made for secondary school provision, putting existing schools under additional strain. I'd like to move to the serious impact this will have on GP and healthcare services, which are already under strain in the local area. As an MP, I've worked tirelessly to improve public services in Gillingham and Rainham, regularly making representations to national and local government for the additional resources our local healthcare system needs. And North Kent, the area which covers my constituency, has some of the highest health inequalities in the country. Our local hospital, Medway Maritime Hospital, already covers approximately half a million people and is already overstretched. It would put extra pressure on the hospital. And I understand that the Kent and Medway NHS Clinical Commissioning Group and the developer have reached an agreement to fund the creation of additional facilities away from the site of the development. To solve the issue, the Section 106 agreement will not provide the additional GPs, which is what our local area. Finally, I'd like to address the fourth issue, the impact this development will have on the local transport sector. Despite its large scale, there is no provision for any reasonable improvement in additional reasonable public transport provision. As somebody who lives near to the proposed development and walks and runs through Lower Rainham Road, both in the morning and in the evening, and travelling throughout the constituency in the day, I see the real pressures already on the existing roads infrastructure. And I support the points made by the council for the council in their opening statement on that. The new development would lead to a significant increase in the number of vehicles on the local road network, which is already congested, which is already, as I've mentioned earlier, over capacity. This would lead to long residents and concerns about increased pollution. Furthermore, as I mentioned earlier, the proposal to provide additional health facilities away from the development site would create even more pressures on the local road network, as residents are forced to travel further to access these services. Madam, in conclusion, I hope I set out briefly the overwhelming majority of my constituents who have contacted me, who I've met at public street surgeries and at events across the constituency, are against this unsustainable, unacceptable development, and I would urge you to reject it. The evidence the Inspectorate would have read from local residents, the community groups, along with my previous written representations and Medway Council's evidence clearly shows that it's unsustainable. And it would have serious negative consequences for my constituents who have also expressed their real opposition to this. No doubt that's information through their representations and the publicly held social sites, where I think the group against pumping 1,000 members to it. And I think the portal which was looking at this application in 2020 had over 3,000 representations on that portal and 1,000 petition there. So once again, I would give me the opportunity to present my evidence today, and I'm happy to take any questions if there are any.
Lovely, thank you very much indeed. Mr Lopez, do you have any questions for Mr Chishti?
Just a few, Madam. Good morning, Mr Chishti.
Morning.
You can see.
Yes, I can.
Brilliant. Thank you for joining us this morning. Can I ask whether or not you were with the inquiry yesterday morning when the opening remarks were delivered on behalf of both principal parties?
I read the opening statement but I could not get a copy of yours to read. So my team worked. So I have read the opening statement from Medway Council, but with regards to yours, I could not get a copy of it. And my team work. What I have done is the statement of case. I have read that on behalf of the appellants,
Okay,
Um,
it was the opening remarks I was after, but just those,
okay.
and we'll make.
Lovely.
But just to bring your attention to some of the emphasis
Sure.
within those opening remarks, and you've touched upon them actually this morning, and the way it was framed, just so that you're aware in the opening remarks in terms of the housing shortage within Medway, both at market housing level and affordable housing level, it was described within my opening remarks as being chronic. That you acknowledge.
What I would say is that I accept there is a real need to build houses in Medway. And with regards to and I've addressed it in my remarks, the number which Medway has to build and 2037 is 28,300. And if I can answer your point on chronic, does the local authority have a 5-year housing land supply? The answer, it doesn't. And therefore, the local authority is doing for a local plan. I had a meeting with the leader of the authority with other members of Parliament for Medway last week to see where that is, and that's being put forward for later in the year. So I accept the point that you make with regards to, is there a real need to build houses in line with what is required in the Medway towns? The answer is yes, but this is not the right site or the location for it.
Yeah, let's just break it down. I was just asking whether or not you recognise the chronic housing shortage, and I focus on that because that's dealing with the shortage of supply as it exists today. It's not dealing with, and it is very different from, the annualised requirement Medway moving forwards. And you note that distinction.
Yes, I do, and that's why I think I addressed it, with regards to what the local authority was delivering at the moment. And I gave you the figure which the local authority had delivered last year was 1,130 homes, which Medway Council had delivered in the last year, which is the highest number it's built in its entire history as a unitary authority. So I accept where we are at the moment with regards to the local authority. And you would have those questions council to address. But I accept as a member of Parliament, the situation, as I said in my representation, is not ideal at all, no.
Forgive me, I've listened to your representation patiently this morning. It doesn't acknowledge the backlog, the shortage that exists today. So you can point, properly or not, to the last year's delivery, but I'm afraid the shortage had already accrued before that time. Do you appreciate that?
Of course, look, reasonable as I can, to say, look, of course there is a real need to build houses, and Medway's track record with regards to building houses is not ideal. It's not ideal. And in answering your specific question, with regards to how you are not chronic, that's a different matter. But I accept it's not ideal authority. But they have a plan on moving forward with the local plan-led approach.
I'll come on to the local plan in a moment with you. But if I take chronic to mean very serious, and that extends both to market housing shortfall and affordable housing shortfall. Do you appreciate that?
Yes, of course I appreciate that.
Okay, so that covers Medway, and they serve very different needs, don't they? Market housing and affordable. Both have equivalent value in your eyes or not?
Market houses and
affordable housing.
Yes, of course, and that's why the local authority, you have to build a certain amount of affordable housing in the local area. And at the moment, our track record with regards to building the various houses across the local authority is not ideal at all.
Yeah. Now, in terms of that challenge, you point to the local plan, the emerging local plan. That's the salvation, if you like, that you point to deliver up the required housing for Medway. Yes.
I think for me, way forward would be through a local plan with consultation with local residents in a strategic way, yes.
Yeah, okay. Now, the problem with the local plan process at the moment is, do you appreciate that it is terrifically delayed?
Yes, of course. We all know Medway's local plan has been delayed, and one of the factors for that was the previous Chatham Dean site, where 5,000 houses were to be built on the, at last minute could not go ahead with regards to natural England, with regards to nightingales and specific species of birds there. So that put it back to where it was heading towards in the previous.
Just want to focus on the delay for a moment. Let's just focus on the delay together. Terrifically delayed, I said. Do you agree that position?
I would say there is a there has been a real delay due to unforeseen circumstances.
Yeah. So in terms of the unmet need, in terms of the period that the plan is to be adopted, what happens in terms of that unmet need, please?
I think
it will go up, won't it?
Sorry?
It won't it?
Well, I think the reality is if it's not met, then of course it's unmet. In the meantime, smaller developments do go ahead, where they don't require this strategic approach, such as this large scale, which in my view is unacceptable. But I think, of course, it's the obvious answer to say if it's not being met, then and the house is not being built, then of course it's not going to be met to the level it needs to be met.
Now, the timetable that Medway extend at the moment, I say it's optimistic, but the timetable that they extend is that there won't be adoption before nigh on a period of 2 years from now. Do you appreciate that?
I understand that there isn't to be a period of time before point of actually having a finalised
period of time. Not a period of time, 2 years, yeah. Mr. Chishti, well, 2 years.
Well, if I may just say, with regards to the detail on the structure and how long it will take, you counsel for the local authority to make those representations on behalf of the local authority. But I've accepted, I want to build houses within the local area, but with regards to the proper infrastructure in the right location, in the right place. And I accept the track record for the local authority has not been ideal at all. I'm led to believe from the meetings we had with the local authority, the regular catch-up meetings with members of parliament, the local authority.
Wait until delivery up of the local plan and adopt it on the council's own, I say, optimistic timetable means that you will not be coming forward with any meaningful till at least a few years after the time for adoption. Do you understand that?
I think I've answered your point before.
I'm not sure you have. The period.
No, I have. With regards to 2 years is when we're going to be having the plan. I'm saying to you, if I may say, in my humble opinion, the technicalities for this plan will be put forward by the local authority, not me as the Member of Parliament. That's their responsibility. There's a difference in roles between the local authority and the Member of Parliament. The view, which the opinion that I was given only last week was that later this year the local authority will be consulting on its local plan, local plan process.
Whatever the period of time, and you point then to the planning authority, and I agree that aspect, you are content to see no meaningful delivery of housing come forward until that time.
My position is, look, we are building houses in the area through, which go through the local authority, but of a strategic scale such as this, it needs to go through a local plan. The local authority has already identified an area to build 12,000 houses through the housing infrastructure successful bid from the government for around £170 million. So the local authority, in my view, is working towards delivering the much needed houses in the area.
Are you aware today there will be meaningful delivery of housing in accordance with an adopted local plan? For meaningful delivery on your own understanding?
No, with regards to the specifics on that, my understanding is we're going to get the consultation on the process later this year, and that's when local residents and members of parliament can give their views on that matter. With regards to after that, to be able to start the building process, I'm not an expert on that. I think hearing from what you said, up to 2 years, but I'm not an expert to say clearly how long exactly it will take after that for those houses to be starting to be built. But what I do know is that from the conversation with local authority, we've made it clear we needed this plan, and what we were required to do as members of parliament was to go to government and to ensure we have sufficient funding for the building of those extra houses, which we have done through the 170 structure bid. But on the specific point that you raised, I'm not in a position to give you the answer. I don't know the answer to that.
Don't know. And just and then we're going to move on to a separate topic in a moment. Just one last question. You recognise, then, as you've just confirmed, that the plan needs to be adopted on an urgent basis?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, think back to the timeline that I've identified before you and you don't disagree with it, that's not going to happen within 2 years, roughly 2 years. Would you define that as an urgent delivery of an adopted plan?
With regards to the 2 years and how long it takes from the point of consultation to the delivery, as I said, I cannot give you that specific answer because I don't have that information. One thing or the other. That's a matter for the local authority council to give you the representations when that plan will be put into practice and those houses being built. For me, it is absolutely vital the local authority gets that consultation plan out to the community, which I understand will be later this year.
Mr Chishti, the nigh on 2 year period I've given you comes from the local authority. That is their stated position. You know that?
The 2 years?
Yeah.
I did not know specifically it was 2 years. And that's why for me to now simply say, yes, of course it's 2 years, would be wrong. I did not know specifics. I knew it would take some time post the consultation to houses, but with regards to the 2 years, I did not know specifically the 2 year period.
Now, part of this inquiry is concerned with the effects of the development on the area of local landscape importance for the Gillingham Riverside area. Are you aware of that?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And it's not too far from your running or your jogging route, is it? So you're familiar with that local area?
Yeah, I live in Chalky Bank Road, which is not far away from there, so near Lower Rainham Road. So, yeah.
What I'd like to know is, do you know that in the recent few years, since 2016, we have a list of developments that have been approved within that area, that protected area, the ALLI. Are you aware of that? To the eastern end,
With regards to on the Lower Rainham Road or in that particular area?
South of Lower Rainham Road, if you're looking to the ALLI, eastern end.
Yes, and I think that comes back to my specific point. The one you would also be aware of the 300 houses being built on Baker's Field near Ottram Key Lane, further down the road.
That's one of the developments.
So yes.
This, please. We have the list of approved developments, so we have that list in front of us.
You got that listing.
We've got that list. How many of those schemes? There were 6 of them. How many of those schemes did you publicly support, please?
With regards to those schemes, I did not support any of those specific schemes, to my knowledge.
But what you and I can agree, isn't it, that notwithstanding do you actually object to them?
With regards to the Baker's Field development, I objected to that development with the location and the size of it. Yes, take into account the views of my constituents. But you'd also, I don't know if you would seen that there's other applications that go ahead, which I fully support. But with regards to the Baker's Field, yes, I did oppose that development.
Well, but what we know is that you didn't support any one of those. In fact, there were 7 developments that form part now of the ALLI. Some yet to be built out, some have been built out, and you didn't support any one of them.
Well, and I clarified the point before with regards to those developments, and I highlighted one specific one of 300 own houses. And let me put it in this context. I have one of the most densely populated constituencies in the southeast. If you live in the area, you would know. So green space is very limited. And on that basis, of course, as a member of parliament, I would do the right thing and say that where development is being proposed, if it's in locations which infringes on green space and with not having the appropriate infrastructure, of course I'd fight for my constituents' position with regards to you are correct. From the recollection I don't have those 7 that you have highlighted. I've highlighted one specific one, which comes to mind because there's over 300 houses that I opposed along with local residents and councillors, yes.
Yeah, notwithstanding your objection to that scheme and not approving any of the others, you can agree with me, can't you, standing back from it and absent any planning expertise, I don't have any expertise as a planner myself either, we can agree that they were decisions made on a proper and sound planning basis. From our perspectives, we can agree that.
I think if the application has gone ahead, according to the right criteria, I have no reason to challenge that, no. But what I do have is a right to make representations as from what I understand. But I do, as a member of Parliament, to account the views of my constituents and the local knowledge that I have with my constituency being one of the most densely populated in the southeast. Where I think it's right to object to certain developments.
This, please. When is the last time that you publicly supported a resident within your constituency, say to the tune of over 50 units on a non-allocated site?
I think with regards to, let's just put it in layman's terms, where have I supported large-scale development in my constituency? As I've mentioned in my opening remarks, hundreds of developments. I used to live there, from 2011 till 2017 before I moved to Rainham. Hundreds of developments in that site where more developments and apartments are being built as we speak here. And so I have, across the board, supported development when it's appropriate to do so, including 48 developments in Britton Farm in Gillingham, which I have supported and which has gone up, and the developments in Twiddle for bungalows for local residents to use as well. So I support developments when it's appropriate, take into account the location, the size of the proposed development. I
asked you specifically, please, about a 50 units plus scheme on an unallocated site and whether you publicly supported that. I'm
just giving regards to, if you have information to say I have objected to any of those developments, do say. But from my recollection, I have supported developments across the board with regard in Gillingham and Rainham where I felt it appropriate to support that development in line with taking into account the views of my constituents and the local needs.
I'm going to put that down as no answer. All right. Thank you very much for your time this morning. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chishti.
Thank you.